Okay.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so thanks everyone for coming. I'm Melissa Bryce, and I'm a member of 350 Chicago. And one of our core campaigns, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, is getting the city onto 100% renewable energy. We're doing that as a coalition member of the Ready for 100 Collective. So we're actually at the point in the Ready for 100 Collective where we're doing research to put together a policy menu for the city. So we're putting together policy menus for renewable energy, transportation, jobs, accountability, and through equity throughout all of that. And so when Andrew reached out about doing a presentation on community solar, I said that fits great with what we're working on at 350 and would love to learn more and see how we can further this along and maybe even actually add some information to our policy menu. So if anyone's interested in more information about 350, I can hang on afterwards and give more information, but we are also working on a fossil fuel divestment campaign and working on the Clean Energy Jobs Act. So I'd be happy to share more about those campaigns or how you can plug in after the meeting. But for now, I will turn it over to Andrew.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. I think before we start the presentation, I think if those of us from who are going to be presenting, we'll just introduce ourselves just real quickly. Yeah, so I'm Andrew. I am actually, yes, as Melissa knows, I'm studying in Edinburgh, Scotland right now, so it's quite late for me. It's like 1:04 a.m. here. And I'm studying history and politics. Yeah, and I'm actually doing my dissertation focusing on 350 and environmental activism more broadly. So yeah, I'm really interested in all this stuff. But yeah, and basically I'm also a member of Common Energy Impact Team, along with the others who are going to be presenting here tonight. Yeah, so I guess Haley, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Haley. I'm a sophomore at Loyola University Chicago, so I'm in the city, just living off campus. I started with the impact team last summer, so it's been a minute, and now I'm kind of we're definitely working more just like community activism into our positions as interns there. And so I'm really excited to sort of build relationships with these different organizations throughout Chicago. Will, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, hey, I'm Will, guys. I grew up in Chicago. I now live on the North Shore. I go to Boston College. I'm just a freshman, but I'm studying chemistry, and I've been with Common Energy for a couple of months now. It's really great. I like seeing all of the impact numbers climb and climb and climb as we spend more time here. And yeah, I'm excited to help on the presentation day. I know it's a great group of CEAs, and we've been doing a good job trying to get the word out about community solar. But on that note, I will toss it over to Lauren.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I am currently a senior graduating in May at University of Wisconsin-Madison. I'm studying environmental studies, sociology, and sustainability. But I'm from the Chicagoland area, so I'm moving back home after I graduate. I've been on the impact team since like the beginning of February, end of January. So a few months, but it's just been really great to be more involved in a field that I plan on being in for the rest of my life. And also just, yeah, working with a great group of people and on new initiatives to really get renewable energy put into action. Elena, if you want to introduce yourself then.
Yeah, I'm Alina. I'm a senior at Loyola Chicago, and I study political science and international relations. And I've been also with the impact team basically as long as Lauren has, since the beginning of the year. And it's been really fun to see how much of a difference we can make from an individual perspective.
I don't know, Natalie, do you want to introduce yourself, or should we just let's just go ahead, I guess. Yeah, so I'll just be sharing the presentation now. 1 second. Okay. Oh, so why is it not showing up straight? Google Chrome, maybe? Ah, okay. For some reason, Zoom did not let me share. Not sure why.
That may just be like a permission that needs to be changed.
Yeah. Oh. I think it might be because I just updated it. Sorry about this.
Yeah, I did make you a co-host. That still seems to be active.
All right. No, I know I can share. I think it's this. I think it's Zoom doesn't have permission.
Maybe after midnight, it won't let you share. Close it to bed.
Maybe that's why. Maybe it's like, yeah, you should be sleeping right now. Why are you up so late? If it doesn't work, I mean, I guess we can give a host permission to someone else on the call and they can do it, because I'm just not sure why. Yeah, actually, yeah. Can you give like host permission maybe to Haley, and then she can share her screen? Because I'm just not sure why Zoom isn't letting me. Okay.
Thank you. Let me try to share my screen now.
Okay.
You guys can see this, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, let me move things around. Sorry, my Wi-Fi is terribly slow, so it's hard to get things moving. Okay, Andrew, would you like to start off?
Yeah, I was just waiting for you to get into the present mode, but yeah.
Oh, sorry. Where is that on here? Oh, there we go.
It's just on that there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so like we were saying all earlier, all of us are part of the Common Energy Impact Team, which is basically a youth-centered or a youth-focused group within Common Energy. So all of us are like high school or college students who are all passionate about helping the environment, about doing something, about being active in the environmental sphere. And all of us are sort of united in Common Energy to promote an initiative called Community Solar. But we'll get a bit later into the presentation about what community solar actually is. So yeah, Haley, could you go to the next slide?
Yep.
Yeah, so just to start off, I guess, like what are some of the stuff we do actually have in common? So essentially community solar, while it's not like a financial, well, it's not as much financially divestment as 350 is, but it is still a divestment in the sense that community solar is directly replacing fossil fuels in the grid with renewables, with solar. So in that sense, it's really it is also about divestment, but divestment from fossil fuels, and helping us to create a future that is actually is using clean energy. And so yeah, a big part of what we do, of course, is enabling new renewable energy. So promoting helping people to connect to solar farms through community solar. And we also actually I know, Melissa, you were just talking about this, but we are actually as well in support of the Clean Energy Jobs Act, because well, actually, one of the provisions in the act is for the expansion and funding of community solar. So what we really want to, and as well, like it has a lot of really cool things. And I think actually, if I recall, in the interview we did, you mentioned it was a bill that would really promote environmental justice too. So that's also something we're interested in terms of community solar, is really making solar much more accessible for communities. And so yeah, and so we're trying to reach out more to the community, sort of be a part of the community, build relationships with organizations, and try to see how we can help and contribute to the conversation. This is the current goal that Illinois has set, the current renewable portfolio standard, 25% by 2050. But yeah, but that still isn't, it isn't really good enough. And we want to get to 100%. But yeah, Haley, could you go to the next slide? Yeah, so I think CEJA would establish this 100% by 2050, but of course, if possible, we want it to be more ambitious than this. This is just kind of just a goal, but like we hopefully can be more ambitious than this. But we really feel like community solar is a way that we can help reach this goal. But first, before we really talk about community solar more, we want to kind of set the stage for the energy sector. So I'll now pass off to Will to talk a bit more about the energy sector as a whole.
Sorry, I forgot I was muted there for a second. So yeah, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the energy sector and its current state and how we're looking to shake things up with community solar. But off the bat, I was just wondering what you guys already know. I know you guys are a bunch of activists who are engaged in this field. So if you guys have any information for us that you'd like to share at the end, or know anything that you'd like to add, please feel free to let me know. But yeah.
Yeah, so I know Illinois is a lot of coal and nuclear, right?
Yeah, I think, and coal's pretty antiquated. You know, we had a big coal lobby for a while. It's still around. So I believe we do source a lot of that. But yeah, so thanks. And we can have another conversation about this more at the end too. If you guys want to chip in, we can get the other people on the call talking about it. But moving forward, essentially, currently there's 4 main steps in the process when it comes to our electricity distribution creation. There's the generation, which is where community solar steps in. Currently, like you just said, a lot of it is coal and nuclear in Illinois, as well as natural gas in other parts of the country. And most of those, all of those are non-renewables, and a lot of them have devastating environmental impacts, such as CO2 emissions, as well as other impacts. We'll talk about it a little later. So that's really where community solar shines, is replacing that generation aspect, bringing the consumer and giving them a voice in how they want their energy to be delivered. So then the transmission, that goes on Change Community Solar. It gets delivered to the utility, right? Most of us in the Chicagoland area. So that'd be ComEd, and they distribute it to consumer through the electricity lines that you see. And we're all able to turn our lights, have heat in our homes, et cetera, which is necessary, but you don't have to do it in such a detrimental way as it currently exists. And like I mentioned a little bit, and I know, I think Haley talks about it later, one of the beautiful parts of community solar is just the power it gives to the consumer, because normally these utility companies, which are total monopolies, they just decide where they source their energy from. But some of the power actually gets in the hands of the consumers with projects like community solar. So yeah. This slide is exactly what we just touched on. Currently 80%, maybe a little more bit of the energy in our grid comes from non-renewable sources. You can see such as oil and gas, coal, and then nuclear as well. And on the right, it shows the drastic environmental consequences of those sources. The CO2 emissions from those non-renewable sources are multiple times higher. It looks like, you know, it's something like 50 times higher at least than the renewables such as solar and wind. And so switching over to projects like community solar really allows us to prevent us from completely destroying the earth as we continue down this path we're on, towards more and more environmental disaster by changing. And the big deal that our program and 350 agree on, sorry, I see we got a question. That would be more for Natalie, if Natalie wants to jump in and cover that, because she'd be more of the expert in that field, or we can hold that for the end. I'm talking about the question in chat in case anyone's wondering. But I know that a lot of times renewable sources, the process in creating them and operating them still involves emissions. I mean, not all renewables, but hydro. So I'd assume that that's where that comes in. Like I said, Natalie can touch on that a bit later. But essentially, yeah, the sooner we can get programs like community solar up and running, the better it'll be for all of us, which is where those renewable portfolio standards come in and our activism really shines. So yeah. All right, so this is what I was talking about. You know, it's not only the CO2 emissions that are currently so harmful in how the energy corporations operate today. You can see on the left, you have mountaintop devastation, which is a byproduct of coal mining. It happens a lot in Appalachia. It's a mountainous region where they're essentially blowing the tops off mountains and destroying natural resources and land. And then a byproduct of that is that all of the heavy metals and silt and detriment is deposited in the valleys and waterways and creates toxic water and has devastating impact on an even larger section of the environment and people who live there than just destroying mountaintops, which is bad enough already. We also have a photo of environmental disasters like the Deepwater oil spill disaster explosion on the rig, as well as, you know, the BP Gulf of Mexico disaster. And those all have huge impacts on the oceans, which already have ocean acidification to worry about and other things from CO2 emissions. And then on the bottom, that just natural gas burning. I believe that's in the Middle East, but I know that 350 worked in part to try and prevent the Dakota Access Pipeline and projects like that, even though people claim that they're safe and a good way to deliver these fossil fuels. A lot of times, they leach into water supplies and have dangerous ramifications for the communities around them. So all that to say, switching over is more crucial than ever. But yeah. And this graph shows what a lot of us are aware about. I'm sure 350, you guys are more than aware. This is a lot of what you do. And your name kind of comes into this graph, actually. So you can see on the right-hand side of both these graphs represents the parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere. On the left, it's essentially showing what is scientifically true, that throughout all time that we can tell through records, CO2 and temperature are incredibly linked. There is a global warming effect, and throughout the entire history of Earth, when CO2 levels rise, temperature rises. Sorry, I just thought I got your notification. All right, that's from Natalie, great. And then you can see in the graph on the right, what it shows is that our current parts per million of CO2 is over 400. The graph on the left has a cap of 320. It's off the scale where we currently are. So it's a situation that has continued to get worse and worse. You can see it's not that surprising. The blue line represents the production of CO2. When you're producing so much of something, the atmospheric levels are going to rise. And a lot of that comes from these fossil fuel industries. And that's where programs like 350, whose goal is to keep the emissions below 350, and products like community solar really work in tandem to accomplish that same goal. And CO2 levels can change over time, right? This graph on the left, it isn't purely positive. It doesn't always go up. So not all hope is lost, but it's not to say we're not in a dire situation for our planet. And that's why we tend to support all activism and try and create change as soon as possible. So yeah. And this is showing the traditional impact that we all know about of increasing global temperatures that are a result of carbon emissions, greater natural disasters, large scale natural disasters, droughts, fires, etc. Luckily, it's become less and less a problem over the years. Everyone pretty much acknowledges that this is going on. The difference is that we try to do something to actually stop it, to be active in preventing the destruction of our planet. And that's our whole goal. And that's why we promote community solar as such a great way to move forward, because it really benefits even the colloquial is not the right word, but the mundane people who might not care about this issue so much. It's a good way to get them involved in energy and reducing CO2 emissions. And I think Haley is going to talk a little bit more about that next.
Yeah, so here we kind of hoped to bring in more conversation. The direct question here says, how can we support Chicago in a just transition to renewables? But we just want to make it clear that while we're sort of trying to just spread knowledge on the opportunity to sign up for a program like this, we really are like all just youth that are interested in activism on a variety of levels and sort of learning from our community. So does anyone that's here sort of have any insight as to like how you think our work overlaps, or like other ways you see a just transition to renewables happening, or anything like that?
Yeah, one thing that comes to mind for me is through the Solar for All program, formerly incarcerated people were becoming trained to be solar technicians. So I think that's a really cool ways to bring equity and justice into the transition, is training people who are normally left out of the job market. So another thing that the Clean Energy Jobs, so Solar for All was part of FEJA, the Future Energy Jobs Act, and now with the Clean Energy Jobs Act, it wants to propel that program even further, make it larger, but also like foster alumni too. So people who have grown up in the foster system would have more of a chance to be a part of this program as well. So those are some ways that I see it specifically with solar and justice can go hand in hand.
That's really cool. It's interesting. Okay, I'll move on for now if there's no other.
Have you seen as well, I guess I just want to bring in here, have you seen as well, like, well, actually, so our community solar is like accessible to anyone, but there's also specifically community solar that's accessible to like low income communities, and they get like higher savings as well. But that's, I guess that's another aspect of like the justice aspect too.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. Like, I wonder if there's any subsidies for people. Like, I don't know enough about community solar, like how you can get involved.
Mhm.
I think that's one of the benefits of community solar, right? Is you don't have that upfront investment cost. So maybe it is more accessible to people in lower income communities. Like, I don't know that much, but yeah, I was wondering if there was like a way to incentivize lower income communities to participate.
I think Lauren will actually talk a lot about that later when she sort of gets more into the details of how the program itself works. So that's good that you
Okay,
brought that
cool.
up.
Yeah, I'd like to know more about that.
Yeah. So the goal of this slide here is just really to show that utility companies, as I'm sure all of you know, are not necessarily the friendliest of companies. They're typically monopolies, and we don't really have a say in where the energy comes from. We do know that it is obviously clear that the fossil fuel industry and these utility companies are huge contributors to climate change. And it's really exciting, I guess, that we are now being given the choice to sort of choose where our energy comes from. This really shows that, as you know, most energy is still being pulled from fossil fuels, just as a direct source. We're really working to change that, and subscribing to these community solar programs in the way that Lauren will describe later is really directly creating the demand for this clean energy. You're essentially voting with your utility bill. That's like sort of a phrase we use a lot, that you want more clean energy and solar energy put on the grid. And that's definitely a very revolutionary idea that we really have like the ability to do that through these types of programs. So this is essentially what I've been lending to the past couple slides, but historically we really as a consumer only have a say in sort of the amount of electricity we need. That's really all our like sort of desires as a customer we're portraying to these utility companies. But now that this state policy really has been already passed, it is in our hands to sort of make it clear that there is a demand for that clean energy, which is really exciting. So now I think Lauren is going to get into more detail about sort of how community solar works and who we are as an impact team.
Yeah, so as Andrew mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we're part of the impact team at Common Energy. So Common Energy is a subscriber management organization, and the impact team is just a youth-led outreach channel that reaches out to people within our circles and within our communities just to spread awareness about programs like community solar and really get people involved in the clean energy transition. So we know that it's very important to act fast to address climate change, and not just for future generations, but for our generation now. We've already started to see the effects of climate change. So we're just really trying to build the foundation for a clean energy economy through youth development as well as energy education. So on the impact team, we really emphasize the idea that green jobs will lead to economic recovery, and we hire students, high school and college level students, to support their local communities in the transition to a clean energy economy. And we engage with communities in order to increase accessibility to programs like community solar through this youth-led impact team. So the impact team was created as a way to empower young people to just make a difference in the clean energy sector. And in order to do this, we have a few things that we focus on, such as our network and just building our own personal network, as well as the network of the company, as well as interpersonal skills and just forming different connections within the solar industry. We also work to educate and become an instrumental part of the switch to renewable energy by educating our communities about the program. And we've been gaining knowledge by learning fundamentals of the solar industry by talking to organizations like 350 Chicago and other organizations in the city of Chicago, really just gaining career development in the field of sustainability. And the biggest goal for us is just making an impact. I think Haley mentioned it before. We are just a group of young environmentalists that are just working to make a tangible, positive difference on our planet. So our biggest focus is on promoting a clean energy economy as well as having a positive impact on our environment. So that's why we advocate within our communities for community solar. So this is just going over how it works. Like I said, it is a state program that Illinois has put in place to increase accessibility to renewable energy, and it takes away the financial and physical burden of solar panel installation. It's also completely free to participate in since it is state funded. So there's no need to pay anything extra to be part of clean energy, and you actually end up saving money due to state incentives associated with it. So your overall electric bill will be lower than it usually is. So just going over how it works, a solar farm is built on unused or exhausted agricultural land. We're not working with any farms that do any deforesting or taking away any land. So then once those are established, the energy from the sun is converted into clean electricity by the farm, and it is connected to the local utility, which in the Illinois area would be ComEd or Ameren. Then that clean energy, after it's connected to the utility, replaces fossil fuels and lowers the emissions within the community. So instead of pulling from a fossil fuel plant, ComEd or Ameren would begin pulling energy from the solar farm it's connected to. And because it's connected to your utility, there is no extra cost. After that, the electricity will flow as normal from the utility through the broader electrical grid and into homes, apartments, anyone that subscribes to it. And ultimately, everyone that signs up is supporting clean energy and also receiving savings every single month on their electric bill. So by signing people up for community solar, we're replacing fossil fuels at the base, increasing clean energy on the grid, and spreading awareness about our program, as well as other renewable energy alternatives. So we're really just working to help people sign up and ultimately lower their emissions and save money. So then this is a screenshot of the Illinois Citizens Utility Board. Common Energy is registered with them as an official community solar provider. And this website just talks about the community solar program in the state and how it allows you to lower emissions and save money. And it's because of state programs like this that we're able to receive savings. In Illinois, I know, Melissa, you mentioned the Future Energy Jobs Act, and that really helped fund and expand community solar in the state of Illinois as well as other states. So this just, like I said, mentions how community solar works and how you can save money from community solar. So this is going over your savings, how state incentives will work when you do sign up for community solar. So solar energy availability is going to vary from month to month. In January and December, for example, when there's less sunlight, less energy will be produced, versus in July when there's more sunlight, there's going to be more energy produced. So in order to ensure that our customers will always have full access to their electricity, we don't guarantee that they'll receive 100% clean energy every single month of the year just because of that variability. But what we do instead is we assess the customer's previous electricity usage, and then we use that information to determine how much solar energy they'll need. After that, we'll allocate a certain portion of the solar farm, and that'll produce about 80 to 90% of their annual energy use. And then state incentives will provide a 10% discount on that energy. So they'll receive a 10% savings on the solar energy they receive, not the entire bill. So let's say their bill is $200 for that month and 100 of it came from solar, they would receive 10% off of that 100 from solar, which would then be added back onto the other energy that they pulled from another source. So you can see in this green box just an example of how it works. Let's say in July, your share of the project produced 1,000 kilowatt hours of electricity. You have the state incentive of 10%, which is roughly 1 cent per kilowatt hour. And so your savings would be $10. But then let's say in January, your share of the project only produces 500 kilowatt hours. You still get that same 10% discount and your savings would be $5. So because of the state incentive and the clean energy credit, you're guaranteed to have savings every single month on your electric bill. So then how it works when you sign up with Common Energy is you'll sign up for free just through a link. There's no charge to sign up. And then we connect your utility account to a local solar project. So you get to keep your account with whatever utility you use. We're just basically telling them to start pulling your energy from a solar farm rather than a fossil fuel plant. Then you'll receive those clean energy credits every single month, which will lower your energy costs. And ultimately, you're lowering emissions and also saving money every single month. I see there's a question. How do we determine how many people share a farm? So, yes, there are. Elena's going to go into some of the farms a bit, but in terms of how many people share a farm, we work with mid-sized solar farms. So I think that power is normally about 600 or 700 homes. So yeah, they need to fill up in order to go live. Most of them are not at full capacity yet, but they're going live soon. And yeah, we do have 6 projects in the state of Illinois. So everyone within the state can be a part of community solar. If you are using a clean energy provider similar to us, you most likely cannot join. Switch, or you can't join us. You'd have to stop getting your energy from that provider and then sign up for an account with us. Yeah, these are great questions. Elena is going to talk more about the different solar farms and projects that we have live right now, as well as how you can be connected anywhere in the state where the ones in our state are located.
Yeah, so here are pictures of the solar farms that we already have built in the state of New York. So these are the current community solar farms that are active and yes, active, and they're bringing solar energy to all the individuals that we have signed up. And we have 6 solar farms in progress in the state of Illinois, 5 of which are connected to ComEd and 1 is connected to Ameren. And to address your question earlier, yes, you can. There isn't a certain radius with our solar farms. So anyone in the state of Illinois that is currently connected to ComEd or Ameren is basically able to connect to these 6 solar farms that are going to go live. And they're expected to go live at the end of May. And we're working hard to sign more people up, because the faster we get more people signed up and connected, the quicker we can start incorporating solar energy into the current grid that we have and start moving away from coal and gas. And we can see that our current impact as a team, onto the next slide, is already up to 812 homes across the 9 states that we're active in. And that's about 4,000 kilowatts of solar energy enabled and up to 42 million pounds of CO2 avoided over the next 20 years. And this is just a big impact that we've already made, and why we're pushing so hard to get more and more people involved and kind of spread this word. Because if we keep going at the rate that we are, it can really start making an impact in all the states that we're active in. And I'll kick it back to Andrew to finish us off.
Yeah, so I guess this slide was just kind of intended as a conversation starter, and basically just to kind of get a conversation going with you at 350 Chicago and sort of trying to, understand how we can sort of fit in, because basically we're here to try to spread awareness about community solar, and also because a lot of people, maybe they've heard of it or maybe they haven't, or they don't really know what it is. So, we're trying to spread awareness of it. We also kind of think, going back to that point about increasing accessibility. So anyone who has a utility account can sign up. So that's also includes like renters or people who's it's especially more accessible than rooftop solar, because like people who couldn't put solar panels on their house could now or could support renewables. It's also really about changing or greening the utility grid. So sort of providing renewable energies for all. And then also going back to that last point, or going back to the point about low income households. So I think low income households can actually receive higher savings under the Illinois program. I believe, although I think they'd have to sign up through a different thing, but I think low income households could receive up to 50%, I think, off. So it's a bit higher. I think it's on the Solar for All website though. But yeah, so but the credit's a bit higher. But for non-low income households, it's just it's so for common energy, it's a 10% savings on the utility or on the bill utility bill every month. But yeah, I guess we'd also like to hear now from you, Melissa, or anyone else, like about what you think, and like, you know, also maybe what kind of what you're doing also about promoting renewables in the city.
Yeah, one thing I was thinking about as you all were talking is, do you have any policy ideas or like ways you have seen in other states that it just accelerates the number of community solar projects and subscribers? Because that's the goal of what we want to work on for the Ready for 100 campaign, is offer up to the city of Chicago and push for implementing policies that really, you know, rapidly transition us in an equitable way. So just curious if you guys have seen any policies in other states.
Well, I actually just, I think this could be an opportunity actually to plug democratized ComEd here, but yeah, I don't know. I actually think like I think it has kind of been shown that at least like municipal utilities, if they're more like accountable to, you know, to the people rather than these, especially like utilities like ComEd, and like certainly with the bribery scandal, like they're just not very, they're just kind of, they're just bad. I mean, they're corrupt, and they're not really like very good for being like for promoting renewables. I mean, in fact, ComEd is like, you know, being like dragged to try to meet this renewable energy target of just 25% of the grid by 2025, and it's not on target to meet that right now. So yeah, I think one of the policies is to try to municipalize like Chicago's utility, although how feasible that is in the short term is up for debate, I suppose. But yeah, I guess I just wanted to bring that up.
Okay, yeah, I will add that to our list. I don't think we have that specifically. I know we have like municipal aggregation, but I don't think we have like municipal.
Yeah, so yeah, because municipals can, like cities can also like build their own community solar farms as well, can do like community choice aggregation, I think.
Yeah, exactly. We do have that as a
yeah.
policy. Yeah, policy suggestion.
I think kind of the difference like in those is that sort of the community solar programs that are existing now in like the policies that were already created sort of allow us to have the choice to choose something like this, but we're obviously not forced to. So I think like in municipalizing a like the energy sector, if you sort of force people to have that choice, I know on one of my slides it said like if you were given the choice, or like maybe in the way that I'm explaining it, like if you were forced to choose where your energy would come from, I assume most would probably choose a clean source. And so just kind of trying to get that to happen like is important.
Yeah, I agree. And I was reading about that too. In implementing these programs, you should make them opt out versus opt in, so that by default more people are going to participate.
Yeah, totally.
And also like people's taxes are already paying for these programs because they're mostly state funded. I mean, that's why it's free. So yeah, I mean, it definitely should be opt out.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if you all have read the book Short Circuiting Policy, but it's by Leah Cardamone. No, not Cardamone. I forgot her last name. Stokes, Leah Stokes. There's a middle name in there. But yeah, she's talking about exactly utilities acting as monopolies and stifling renewable energy policy. So I'm already only halfway through the book. So I haven't gotten to the point of like the successful campaigns, but she's talking now about states like Texas, where they were like on the road to wind, being a like massive leader in wind. And then like utilities and private interests just came in and squashed it. So yeah, it's super interesting how much policy does make a difference, and utilities acting as monopolies preventing us moving forward.
Yeah, and I mean, I think even like the Clean Energy Jobs Act, like we were mentioning, I mean, that's a policy that can at least drive forward these programs. Like, I mean, I don't think it would make it mandatory to, you know, or it wouldn't make it like opt out, but it still does, like, it's important to allocate like, or at least to allocate more funding. And I think too, when people like sign up for these programs, they're showing that there is actually support for renewables. Like it's like a declaration, like, you know, yes, there are people who do support this in Illinois.
Yep, definitely.
I'd also like to add a couple states have implemented a renewable energy bill of rights. This might be interesting to include in policy adjustments, but it basically just protects the individual and yeah, protects their right to access clean energy in their communities.
Do you have any examples of those you could share or?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll send some resources in the chat.
Okay, cool.
I have a couple of things I wanted to put in. I don't know if it's useful for your presentations as you talk to other community members, but from a financial perspective, broadly, the mainstream conventional investors are acknowledging, you know, like Bloomberg has written several articles about how coal is dead. And we know that. So it's important to sort of like reinforce that, as well as the fact that the energy sector, which is more or less still the fossil fuel sector, is the worst performing one. So, you know, it's just they're being subsidized. They're not going to have a good return. So for people questioning it, it's just another reason to continue transitioning to renewable energy. And then the only other tidbit, you know, for getting new subscribers, new members, consumers, if you make it easy for them, they're just so much more likely to do it, right? People are so busy with their daily lives that if there's any way that it could just be a very seamless transition from, you know, if they're using a different community or not, sorry, community, solar credit provider, but they like your story and they would switch. If there was some way to have them be able to sign up online and on the back end, someone at your team can go to ComEd and make the switch for them, like I guarantee that like the sort of like acquisition rate would increase. Because for people, it's like every click that you save, every page, every minute, like it's just more likely that they'll do it right there then in the moment. So
Yeah, I agree. There was like Hero Power was someone we've been working with, and yeah, you just give them like your account number or something like that and they sign you up. So it's like takes like a minute, which is really easy.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite our sign up process is quite fast. I know, Sylvia, I think you were mentioning about switching. So what is the provider you're using right now?
because of like Melissa Hero Power, you know, I was like, great, you know, I'll use them. I had moved, I was changing locations anyway, so I signed up. You know, and it's not to say that I'm pretty active, I'm pretty engaged, I take the time to do things that I care about, but for people who are maybe just learning about it for the first time or just busy, you know, they have kids or they have jobs, or the idea of going and doing it themselves, right? Like, I do know the easier you make it for people, then you get more long-term buy-in. If the less work they have to put up front, then they'll stick with you.
I think that's definitely, oh, sorry, go ahead, Lauren.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, touching on that, I think, yeah, what we do is makes the process very easy, because hypothetically you could, or I guess not hypothetically, but like you could sign up for community solar on your own, jump through like all those hoops, but it's going to be a lot harder than when you sign up with like Common Energy. With us, you literally just click on a link, create an account with us, and give us your utility login, and we do the extra hoops. We jump through the extra hoops for you so that you don't have to do that. So switching from like ComEd to community solar is a very simple process. With Common Energy, it does get a little bit harder with other community solar organizations, just because they have different like policies and ways in which they do things. So yeah, it does get a little more complicated with that, but the actual like switch itself is pretty easy, and we handle like most of it for you.
I was going to say, I think that's another, like that's definitely a goal of the impact team as well, because like our goal really not only is to just educate more people on like the opportunity for these programs, but what like an intern does on the impact team is sort of like set meetings with people that they know are eligible for these programs. And you can do it, you can literally explain the whole program and sign them up within like a 30-minute period of time. So if you can really like get people to sit down and sort of listen to what you have to say, that's definitely like a start. And I was also going to add that in terms of policy, I think like you can even work education on like these issues as a whole into that, and like sort of requiring that as like some sort of level of like preliminary education, because then people may be more active in looking for these kinds of programs.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, I've definitely been taking notes so I can take these ideas back to the renewables team.
Yeah, because hopefully we can talk to like, I guess, talk to more people at 350, because, you know, if people were interested in signing up, then, you know, I mean, that would be great, obviously, but, you know, I mean, I don't know, like, yeah, just to spread awareness of it too. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally would, but well, actually, that's a good question. So my new house will have solar panels. So would I still sign up for something like this? Like for any, I guess I wouldn't be using a lot of energy from the grid, but there could be a time when I would. So would you still sign up for something like this?
I think Illinois doesn't let you.
Doesn't like, okay.
Yeah, if you have solar panels on your house, that disqualifies you from community solar,
Okay.
because it is for more people who don't have access to rooftop solar.
That makes sense.
And I want to make a distinguishment between, Sylvia, you mentioned you're with Hero Power. Our organization is slightly different because I don't think Hero Power works with community solar. It's more of a clean energy provider. So it's slightly different that they purchase renewable energy from other sources and give you the energy credits, where with community solar, we connect you to the state program that supports renewable energy development that connects directly to the grid. So it's slightly different, but unfortunately in the state of Illinois, you can't participate in both programs. So you would have to choose one or the other. And if you're already connected with this energy supply company, you would have to cancel your account before signing up for community solar with Common Energy. And I see that is, you know, an extra burden for the consumer that, like you were saying, just like more clicks and more work to do. But yeah, just wanted to make that small distinction.
It's not necessarily prohibitive for me, but also I guess I didn't realize, I thought I always had to have an account with ComEd, and that then any renewable energy use would go through whatever provider I'm using. And so you're making it sound like I would actually completely cancel my account with ComEd and then just create one.
No, you'll keep your account with ComEd, because that's how we would connect to community solar. It's through the ComEd grid. But with Hero Power, you would just have to cancel your account with them.
Gotcha.
Also, if you're interested in talking about this a little bit more, I'm just going to send a link to a Google form where you can fill out some contact information so that we can get in touch and talk about it more. Oops.
Yeah, thank you, Natalie.
Yeah, we'll definitely share this information. We're going to share out the recording. So the recording will go on our website and our YouTube channel, and then we'll send it out via email as well. So hopefully, sorry, I wish we had higher attendance. We've actually been struggling with a lot of our meetings. I don't know if people have Zoom fatigue or what, but yeah, so apologies, it wasn't a bigger audience, but hopefully we can reach more people through the recording.
I think we feel that as well. So it's definitely understood.
Yeah. Thanks. Well, I learned a lot and I'm appreciative of your time. And thank you, Sylvia, for coming as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
I
you.
just hope, yeah, because I'd like to, if we could talk to more people at 350. I mean, that'd be great if we could. I mean, I don't know if we want to set up an event like this again, if it's just going to be very difficult to get more people. I don't know, maybe if we could do even something in person if restrictions allow at some point, but like, I don't know if how realistic that is too. But.
Yeah, I'm thinking about this summer, we might be able to hold in-person events. I think the vaccines are opened up to a lot more people and more people get vaccinated. I think they'll feel more comfortable going in person. Yeah, so I could see that happening over the summer.
I would love to, if you guys are willing to come back, then yeah, when things open up, line you up for our monthly meeting.
For sure.
Yeah, cool.
And Andrew, we'll see you on May 1st.
Yes. Yes, I don't think I'll be giving that presentation,
Oh, okay.
but yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, democratized comment. So that'll be good. Cool. Well, yeah, I guess if there's nothing else, we can wrap up and I can share the email with you and the recording when it's uploaded.
That would be great.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Lisa. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
all for
thank
your
you so
time.
much.
Yeah, awesome presentation. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
And thanks for what you guys do too.
Yeah, thank you.
Glad we're accomplishing stuff.
Yeah. Sounds
Got it.
good. Thanks.
Have a
Have a good
great night.
All right.
Good night.